Stepping onto a football field or playing any sport for that matter has always come with some form of risk, but the full extent of that risk has only really become evident in recent years. With that knowledge, we've seen changes in how the game is played, but are they enough, or will there always be a risk?
Obviously, it did happen, and it's scary, but I think the game is safer than it's ever been. That's a hard thing to say out loud, dealing with what we're dealing with.
Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center El Paso sports medicine Dr. Colby Jenrich estimates there's still a concussion that comes out of almost every game, but he too agrees the game is safer now.
It's been, leaps and bounds. I think just having general understanding of what a concussion is and what a traumatic brain injury is, just in the general public, has improved education.
A large part of that education has informed and changed the way tackling is now taught. Head coach Mike Pry from Coronado joins us now to break down the new rugby-style tackling technique.
So in the olden days, the way we were taught to tackle was to get your foot across, hat across, screws up, and come across the ball carrier. With the new way, with the Atavist styling and the hop tackling, now you're going tracking the near hip, hip to hip, and your head is behind the tackler with your palms going down. So it's changed a lot in the last couple years.
Developing players that are keeping their head up while tackling has decreased concussions really dramatically. In the last 4 years, they've seen really a precipitous decrease just because of that change in technique.
In Texas, it's mandatory that every high school coach be certified with the Atavist tackling technique, a company that prides itself on teaching the safest way to tackle.
It's not to say that they don't know how to tackle, but just like with any other training, right? Like if you're going to be a lifeguard, you have to be CPR trained, and the list goes on, right? So tackling education for a football coach should be no different. It's something that Texas can hang their hat on because they're the first state, and as of now, the only state to kind of draw their line in the sand and say, hey, we're going to do something.
Terrence Wheatley told me since 2019, head impacts across the state of Texas have gone down by over 10%, and he says they've also seen a decrease in concussions. Let's take a look back at the data from Coronado High School. In the season prior to Atavist being required, the program saw 9 concussions. Then in the next season, that number was reduced by a third to 6 concussions. And then in the years following, that number continued to decrease all the way to 3 this season.
We do everything in our power to teach ourselves how to tackle correctly, how to make our kids safer.
While Atavist is not being used by Las Cruces public schools, Coach Castile told me since he started coaching in Las Cruces, he's been certified in heads-up tackling, which teaches a similar tackling technique to Atavist. There's no doubt the game has taken leaps and bounds in becoming safer. But even with an emphasis on education, keeping your head out of tackles, and the new technology like guardian caps, there are still areas of the game that pose severe risks. And Abe's death is proof of that. Obviously, you can't wear them in games either, but is that something you wish you'd had last season?
No. We're not sitting around thinking that. We wouldn't have had it on for this particular incident anyways.
When you hit the back of the ground and your head hits is when a lot of the concussions are caused. So, the Atavist doesn't really help with that, but the caps would be.
It's really hard to prove, something wouldn't have happened, right? Or would happen without it. But we know we can reduce impact.
Unfortunately, there's no holy grail in preventing concussion. These are big players that are having a huge contact, and head injuries are probably going to be, unfortunately, part of that forever. But creating more understanding of how these brain injuries occur and then protecting them using better techniques, I think, is what's really going to improve the sport.
Is there anything that, that you wish you could go back and do differently or change?
As far as Abe, probably not. Just, I'd love to tell him I love him. I'd love to just give him a hug and tell him how much he means to us. But, as far as from a fundamental standpoint and what we were doing, no. But I just miss him a lot.
Abe's passing is a loss that will always be felt by this community. But the hope is that with education and new technology, it's a loss that will never have to be felt again. For now, reporting from Las Cruces, Rachel Phillips, ABC 7.